Hello and welcome to Mastering Power Query video series. This is video number 8. In this video, we are going to talk about pivoting columns. The first clarity we need to get is what is pivoting. So first, let's get that understanding. In simple terms, we have a data which is captured row level, but for our analysis requirement, the row level capturing is not going to help. You need to convert them into columns. If you are familiar about Excel pivot table, you know that you can drag and drop the fields in 4 different sections like row, column, filter, and values. It is like a field whose items are available in the row level, but it is not making sense when it is in row level. When you drag and drop them into column level, it is making much more sense. That process which you drag it from a row to a column section so that the items of that field get segregated and presented into columns, that process is called pivoting the columns. Now that in Excel for a summarized data, but in Power Query we are talking about restructuring the data itself. So you do have an option to aggregate and convert it into column, or even without aggregating and converting into column. That's a beautiful thing. So without much ado, let's get into the Power Query editor. Let's load some data and let's check out what is this pivoting columns. So I'm in the data tab, get data, launch Power Query editor. And once we are in the Power Query editor, we are going to load the data. So let's go ahead and click new source file, Excel workbook. And I got 2 data sets for you. So I'm going to load the first one, which is pivoting data set 1 import. And it's a sheet 1. And let's click OK. And as usual, I'm going to get rid of the change type. And here you got the data. So this is the first data. So let's rename this query pivoting data set 1. So let's load the other data also. New source file, Excel workbook, and I'm going to go ahead and load the next data set. And as usual, it's going to ask me which sheet. It's sheet 1, and I'm going to click OK. Then going to right side, get rid of the change type, and come to this side, and I'm going to name that as pivoting data set 2. So we got 2 data sets which are loaded. Let's go to the first one and let's try to do the process. So we need to go to the home tab, split the column by the delimiter, which is the comma. So I'm going to say OK. And we need to get rid of the change type again. I'm going to go to the home tab and I'm going to go ahead and say use first row as headers. All right, so now watch closely. Let's talk about the actual topic, which is pivoting the columns. You could see here order ID is repeated, okay, twice. Each order ID is repeated twice. Why so? So if you keep moving towards the right side, where the problem is in the last 2 columns. Watch closely. The weight of the product purchased and the dimension of the product purchased, they are captured under one column and the details are given like this. So weight this much and the dimension is this much. But the problem is, let's say if I want to generate a report of those products which are less than 1 kg, it's difficult for me to go ahead and apply a filter here because I got the combination of a decimal number and a text value together. Even if I try to change the data type by overriding the change type, and let's say if I say decimal number, and if I go ahead and add it as a new step, you could see the error starts applying for the text values, which will not let me to analyze the data or work on the data in a proper way. So that's where the pivoting comes into place. So what I'm trying to do, instead of repeating the weight and the dimension for each order, I want to put this into individual column. Let the weight become one column and the dimension become one column. So a row level captured information we are converting into column level. But remember that when I'm converting, I don't want to add anything here because it belongs to the same transaction. So I don't want to aggregate or summarize here. I just want to restructure this table in such a way that the weight comes in one column and the dimension comes in one column. So how do we achieve this? So the first step, select those two columns which you want to do the restructuring for. So I've selected those two columns and I'm going to the transform tab, where under the any column section I go to the pivot column. So if you keep the mouse over there, it says use names of the currently selected columns to create new columns. So basically this will create columns. So let's click pivot column and let's try to understand here. It's asking when I am converting, which numerical column should be considered to get segregated. The last column, which is WD values, that's the column we want to segregate into the separate two columns, right? And under the advanced option, it is asking, hey, when I take that numerical column and put it for the weight and the dimension, do you want to do any kind of segregation or aggregation? So here I don't want to do any kind of aggregation, so I'm going to go for don't aggregate. But there are places where you might see options like sum. Example, let me say for one plant, Jan, Feb, March, April, they would have given month-wise productions captured row level, but you want to see them in column level, but you don't want to see them as individual column. It's better you want to summarize and show it as one column. So those times these aggregation choices will make huge difference. Okay, but right now for us, we don't want to aggregate it. We're going to leave it as it is and we're going to click OK. So the base value column, which is going to get splitted into multiple columns, is this one. So the next column which you selected, where you had the weight, dimension, the words repeated, is the one which is going to get splitted. Okay, so watch it. When I click OK, now let's look at the last two columns. That's the beautiful part right now. Watch it. So let me show you before. Watch it. Before this step, it was like this, my friend. It was like this. And after the pivoting, so what happened is this value column has splitted this value into this one and this value into this one. So for every unique, it mapped it automatically. It mapped automatically. That's what happened here. So the weight and the dimension got split into multiple. Now it's very easy for me to do the filtering or whatever I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this data type. So I'm going to select and change this into decimal number. So without any problem, this gets converted. This one is already a text I don't have to worry about. Now, can I do a filter for less than 1 kg products? Absolutely, yes. I can go to number filters and I can say less than, and here is my filtering option. So I want to say less than 1 kg. And if I say okay, so all I'm going to get is those products whose weight is less than 1 kg. So now you saw one example for the pivot. Now the same way, let me show you one more data set where we have the option to play around with the pivoting. So let's go to the second data set. Again, I'm going to go to the home tab, split column, by delimiter, it's the comma. So we're going to click OK and we're going to get rid of change type. All right, then we're going to promote the first row as header. Perfect. Now change type are perfectly fine because it has done the conversions properly. But watch closely here. The transactions are not repeated, and the dates are captured. What is a type of tire manufactured, which plant manufactured it, but what's the cost related to it. So these cost items, I want to have them in columns because I want to create one final column which is called total cost. The problem here is if I have it like this, I cannot have a total cost in each transaction, because these are the costs. What happens if there is a depreciation and labor captured for one particular transaction? I cannot keep scrolling and checking where it is. So I want to have these individual cost item as individual column, so that I can create a column called total cost, which will be the sum of all these different type of cost. Okay, so I want to convert this row level captured into column level. So what's the first thing I have to do? I have to select this column and the cost column, and then I have to go to my transform tab, and I have to go to my pivot column. It's going to ask me which is the value column you want to take it as a base while you split the category, the cost category. It's the cost amount, and it's asking, would you like to do any aggregation? Now this time you can see that there is the numerical column which is going to get split. It's not different data type. Last time weight was decimal and the dimension was a text, so it was not showing you the option like sum, average and all. This time it's a numerical column. All the three columns, and it's going to get segregated. It's a three numerical columns. So it's asking, hey, would you like to do any kind of aggregation? I'm going to say if a same item is repeated, probably you can sum it up. I'm perfectly okay with that. So I'm going to click OK, and watch what happens this time is, watch, the depreciation is coming as a separate column, labor is separate column, raw material is separate column, and utility has also come as a separate column, which you can see everything has come into separate columns. Now what I said, I want to have one column which is sum of everything, all the different types of cost. I want to sum it up and bring it into one column. So how do I do that? We've seen it last time, but before I do that, why am I seeing this green bars not completing it properly? Because there are values like null. So what I want to do is select these 4 columns or 5 columns, and I want to go to the home tab, replace values. So what I want to replace the null to, I want to replace the null to 0, so I can easily add them up. So select and done. So now what I want to do, having these all the 5 columns selected, my friend. So I've got all the 5 columns selected. I want to total them up and bring it into one column called total cost. So should I want to keep it, or I don't want to keep it? It's purely up to me. So let's say I don't want to keep this as individual columns. I want to bring it as total cost. So what I can do, I can go to transform. Let me zoom it for you guys again. Transform, and I go to see that whether I can sum it up all these columns under the standard. No, it's not letting me to do that. So probably I can go for add column, and I go to the standard, and I can say, why don't you add these columns and create a new one? So when I click, so I got a total column. So this one, I'm going to rename it as cost, or let's say total cost. And then what I don't want is the rest of the columns. I don't want it. So I'm going to go ahead and select up to these columns, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say remove the columns. Now that's all I want to achieve it. So see the way how we have transformed the data into such a level. It was at this stage when we were talking about, it was like this, where the person was asking, I simply want total cost, which is the sum of all different types of cost which is involved in the production. So it was not letting us to do it because the different types of cost was captured in row level. So we used pivoted columns and we transformed them into individual columns, and we replaced all the nulls to 0 so that it will help us to add, and we created a new column which is a sum of all the columns, which was appearing at the end as addition, and we changed the column name to total cost and removed the other columns which we do not want to see. Now it's quite easy for the end user to look at the data and understand, okay, for on this date, this is the type of tire we have manufactured in this particular plant, and these are the number of units we produced, and this is the total cost involved on it. Yeah. All right. So that is all about pivot. So we'll catch up in the next video to learn about what is unpivot. Until then, take care of yourself. Signing off, Hariharan.